Good morning. Second session of Don't Let Doubt Take You Out. Looking forward to sharing this with you guys. We're doing chapters 2 and 3 today. And I reread chapter 2 because we had talked about doing it last week. And I thought it was a really good one to reread. So if you've been working on the questions, it's kind of good to go through, or I'm going to say it is really good to go through the questions. Do these on your own because these are personal answers, and work through them because it'll, if you allow it to, give you some brain things that are going to be popping up that you're going to be like, where did that come from? And so we're working on not allowing doubt to keep us from accomplishing of what we're meant to accomplish, right? And if we kind of step back and look at the basic concept of what this guy, Todd Mullins, talks about, what doubt all does in our life, we can see that it just affects absolutely every aspect of what we do, who we are, and how we show up for ourselves and others, right? So chapter 2, think about what you think about. And again, I want this to be super open for you guys. So at any time when you're thinking of something, don't hesitate, unmute and share it, please. I really don't want this to be just me talking because I feel like this is a topic that we all work on daily. And so would love to hear what your thoughts were. Okay, so setting the tone. When we fix our thoughts on God, God fixes our thoughts. That's really simple. Just kind of wraps up the whole thing, right? And so his examples are really simplistic. I find that he has a way of explaining things really simply. He uses the example of going into a cave when he was a kid on a school trip and how he could not see the hand in front of his eye, like nothing, right? And it's another thing to find yourself in a dark place in your thoughts, lost, disoriented, not sure how or if you'll make your way out. So taking those two examples side by side, in the cave, obviously someone turned on the lights. And very often in life, we would like someone to turn on our lights as well, right? Like it's a very good example of side by side examples of what we do in our minds and how it affects everything of what we do. So it's a fairly recent book. So he's talking about the 2024 Summer Olympic Games, and Simone Biles. I'm sure that some of you probably still remember her. She was really, really good. She's been around for a while. And how her journey took an unexpected turn during the 2020 Tokyo Olympics, which those were postponed. And then she faced a pivotal moment when she chose to withdraw from several events, citing mental health concerns. And her decision sent shockwaves through the sports world and sparked essential conversations about the significance of mental well-being. And then she shared what happened. Thoughts of self-doubt, insecurity, and fear literally took her out of the game. She acknowledged the power that her thoughts had when she said, I have to put my pride aside. I have to do what's right for me and focus on my mental health. We have to protect our body and mind, and it just sucks when you're fighting with your own head. It just shows you how powerful our thoughts are, that they actually control the outcome of everything that we do, right? I don't know, I was thinking of times of when a friend used the phrase yesterday, battling with our mind monkeys. I think that's the chaos that we sometimes feel, right? as I was reading about Simone, I was thinking of a time of when I thought, or if there was examples in my life of where I had been when doubt had like completely overtaken. I haven't participated in Olympics or anything, but we've all done things that we have had to practice for, work our way up to, and then on the day of, it feels like everything that you think could possibly go wrong is in your head. I don't know. Anybody have an example of that? I remember doing a Super Saturday presentation years ago, and we did like multiple Zooms leading up to it. The content had been made for us. We weren't open in Canada yet, and so we had to be careful of what we were saying. And the day before, when we got to Edmonton, hey Grant, one of the uplines said, "I don't like this content. It's not good. It's not going to be good." And she changed everything, and so everything that had already kind of planted in my brain was removed, and she remade the content and just went with like, just do what you feel. And I was like, I'm feeling anything. You took it away. And so on the spur of the moment, we had to like completely redo the thing. And I remember lying in bed at night thinking, this is the absolute most biggest gong show ever. And whenever I talk about this to the people that were in the audience, they were like, no, it actually wasn't. But to me, that was my doubt and the fear of, you know, taking away what I thought was certain and replacing it with nothing, still having to show up in that.
I was in the audience that day. It was perfect. It 100% was perfect. When I think of moments where I've let doubt take over, I don't even think of like so much the big moments. I often think of the little ones because those are like the daily ones that happen more often. It's like when you're in the middle of a conversation and all of a sudden they say something or give you some kind of body language that just makes you feel either inferior or like, oh, did I say the wrong thing? And it's that instantaneous moment of doubt, like, am I good enough? You know what I mean? Like that instant tightening in your chest that you can feel. And if you don't feel this, I'm so happy for you. But I feel like the human experience is a pretty broad one, and we all for the most part, feel and experience the same things. And that's what I think of when I think of doubt taking me out. Because in that moment, I completely just like let go of who I am and what I stand for, and it can derail me. It can completely derail me because of that tiny little moment of doubt. And it's something that I've worked on for such a long time, and I feel like it's something I'm always going to work on because there's always going to be things that I'm maybe not 100% confident in, or maybe things about myself that I'm feeling are not good enough because I'm human. But those are the moments that stand out to me the most.
You explained that really, really well because it's about the feeling, right? It's about how it makes us feel. And then we respond to those feelings. Okay, we're going to go to a Bible story. There's a story in the Bible about a man who also got stuck in a cave. I love his parallel comparisons because they're so relevant to today's situations as well. His name is Elijah. The story takes place right after Elijah confronts King Ahab and his wife Jezebel and defeats the prophets of Baal. Fire comes down from heaven, consuming Elijah's sacrifice, and proves that Yahweh is the true God. It is the remarkable display of God's power. But right after this victory, the story continues. And it's so interesting that one person had the power over him. And I had never looked at this story in this way, right? Like we read the Bible story, we take the context, we move on. But the way that he explains it, when Ahab got home, he told Jezebel everything Elijah had done, including the way that he had killed all the prophets of Baal. So Jezebel sent this message to Elijah: may the gods strike me and even kill me if by this time tomorrow I have not killed you just as you killed them. And so think about who she was. She was Jezebel, right? Elijah was afraid and fled for his life. He went to Beersheba, a town in Judah, and he left his servant there. We have all had this feeling before where we're like, okay, I've had enough, Lord. I have had enough. Take my life. I am no better than my ancestors who have already died. Then he lay down and slept under the broom tree. But as he was sleeping, an angel touched him and told him, get up and eat. He looked around, and there beside his head was some bread baked on hot stones and a jar of water. So he ate and drank and lay down again. It's such a powerful story in such a small way, where this goes to show that sometimes all you need to straighten out your thoughts is a power nap and some pizza. We can get so bent out of context if we're tired and if we're allowing our thoughts to just ruminate, right? And he went to sleep and God provided nourishment for him. And then the angel came again, touched him and said, get up and eat some more, or the journey ahead will be too much for you. So we have to be prepared for the journey ahead, right? He got up and ate and drank, and the food gave him enough strength to travel 40 days and 40 nights to Mount Sinai, the mountain of God. There he came to a cave. This journey started with a comment. Many of us can relate to Elijah. Something happened, just like Sheila said, someone said something or did something that led us to a dark and lonely place. Notice in this story, Elijah's journey to the cave started with a comment. So Jezebel sent a message to Elijah. And basically she told him, I hate you and I'm coming after you. And that one comment got stuck in Elijah's head, and it took up residence in his mind, where it took root. So it was planted there, right? I feel like I could just underline this whole thing. You would think that a man of God who had just defeated the 450 prophets of Baal, who confronted King Ahab and his wicked wife, and who raised a dead child back to life, would handle one rude text message from Queen Jezebel.
I think the key part there is that Elijah allowed that to take root.
And he talks about that.
And I'm like, how often? So we've had a month of craziness, and how often do I not, and I do this a lot, allow myself to take that power nap and eat that pizza so that I can wake up and feel better? Instead, I just power through and get frustrated when nothing is working the way I want it to, and when I feel like everything I'm touching is falling apart, and it's because I'm trying to do it all on my own will.
Mm-hmm.
I love that God gives us examples like Elijah, because it makes me feel not so alone in things.
Well, I don't think I'd ever read this story like this. The book of James said Elijah was a man just like us, and this also means we are just like Elijah. And like Elijah, we can get messed up by one negative thought. And so often it's a friend, it's a comment that might have been like unintentionally kind of chucked out there, not really thought about what the words had power to say, and then it's taken the wrong way, right? And you can't take back of what's been said. So this gives a little bit of context. Don't forget that right before this happened, God had shown up in a spectacular display of power that completely validated Elijah in front of the whole nation. The whole nation. Still, this one comment from this one woman sent the prophet of God running for his life. And this is why the Bible says you and I have an enemy that's just as real as Jezebel. Jesus said, your enemy wants to rob, kill, and destroy you. He will try to intimidate you and take you out and make you believe you're all alone and forgotten. Jezebel's comment put Elijah in the cave. The enemy took that comment, twisted it, and magnified it, giving it more power than it really had. It was one comment, and in the context of what he had accomplished, you would think, oh, little Miss Queen Jezzy over there didn't have a whole lot of power. But he allowed it to get in here, and he allowed it to sit there to take root. That is within our power, right? So what comment has the enemy been taunting you with, magnifying what was said to the point that has you on the run? And then comes the powerful part. Feel does not equal real. I think one of the most powerful, empowering things I have learned in building this business, working with people, navigating relationships, building relationships, is feelings are not facts, right? And even though we feel something, it doesn't mean that that is a fact. So Elijah was feeling this comment from Queen Jezebel, but it wasn't a fact. So Elijah complains to God, I'm the only one that has served you faithfully. I'm the only one left. And God corrects him, informs him that there are 7,000 faithful who have not bowed to Baal. And we do this, right? We feel like we're the only one going through this. This teaches us a valuable lesson. Feel does not equal real. Just because you feel something doesn't make it real. Your feelings are valid, but they're not always true. And just because you feel alone doesn't mean you are alone. God says he will never leave you or forsake you. Just because you feel as if everyone is against you doesn't mean everyone is against you, right? There may be a few people. No, we're never going to be loved and liked by everyone. That's just fact of life, and that's totally fine, right?
I was debating here whether I wanted to share, but
Of course you do.
um
I was waiting for you to share.
no, actually, like when I was reading this chapter, it's so I can remember my dad saying to me, you cannot go by your feelings. You cannot go by your feelings. And that phrase has rung true for me over the years. But I don't know. I still struggle, right? And my latest experience with feeling like I'm not enough and that I'm not good enough and all that was with this job at F45, right? Yeah, talk about um something painful. Like it is so painful for me to go and talk to people that I don't know, right? And like it feels like somebody's pulling my teeth or something. I'm serious. And oh boy, my battery's running low here. I gotta just a sec here. You can keep talking because I gotta plug in my computer.
Okay, for those of you that don't know the context, Colleen is a fitness instructor, and she is of the older fitness instructors in the place that she works, which I think is fabulous because, I mean, like, who do we want taking up that space as healthy older women, right? But she feels like it's hard. And I'm sure it is, but she's really good. Okay, so don't follow your feelings. Your feelings were never designed to be your leader. Elijah followed his feelings that day, and he listened to the voice of fear and anxiety and ran into a dark cave. He had given up and asked God to let him die, and it all started in his mind. He was deceived by what he believed, and this is what happens when we treat our feelings as if they are facts. Yes, Tira, so much is based on feelings. And everybody in the whole world in today's day and age needs to be validated about their feelings, right? And that's where the whole therapy concept comes in from. Every feeling needs to be validated nowadays. Some feelings are just not truth. You've just allowed them to take root, right? Go ahead and continue, Colleen.
Now I totally forgot what I was going to say. But yeah, I mean, that whole experience, like, oh man, it just, and now, okay, I mean, you guys don't know the latest. I mean, I was let go, right? Because I was struggling so much, right? Like, I like this job is something that I don't even know why I applied for it because you have to be an outgoing, forward person, and I'm not, right? But right now, the feelings of, oh, I'm not good enough, and like just even like what Elijah was feeling, like you, allowing that thought in my mind that I'm not good enough, I was let go, um, blah, 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 and not going down and feeling bad for, feeling like I'm a failure and all that. I think I've done better this time. What I'm trying to say, because no, it's just not for me. And that's okay.
Mm-hmm.
That's okay, right? Like I love being a fitness instructor, but maybe not in this place, right? And that's okay, right? I just have to, you just have to replace the lies with truth. I keep
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
going back to that, right?
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, and the intense relief that I have, right? That I don't have to go in there and push myself like that is amazing.
But it's probably been something that has refined your thought process to make this clear. Like now you see it and you're like, hey, that's good for some, but if it's not good for me, that's fine. Nothing is good for everyone.
Exactly. I don't have to be like somebody else like
Yeah.
this. And I think like that is, oh, that is something that I've struggled with all along in Plexus, right? Because you watch people and you watch them post things and and you think, oh, how did they get everybody? Like how, that's why when you shared that in the May Momentum chat, I was like, wow, yeah, that's, and I listened to a podcast about this too yesterday. Just be yourself. And I'm just trying to be myself. It doesn't have to, I don't have to be like Marge.
Mm-mm. Mm-mm. Please don't
Right?
be. Please don't be. Please don't be. But this next paragraph is exactly for you then. It's a natural tendency. It's like we have to understand that this is not a failure or a fault about ourselves, right? It's a natural tendency to struggle with thought and then to feel like defeat or discouragement. And soon the feeling of insecurity takes over, right? And then all he wants to do is have some Netflix and a bowl of ice cream. It's not wrong for us to do this. We just have to see of what we're doing. To not stay stuck in those feelings and those thoughts. And like he says, like, or maybe you're worried about your family and you're playing out all the worst case scenarios. Our brain can build stories starting from one negative thought, and all of a sudden you have made this whole plethora of what could possibly happen, right? We used to joke of how, and it's not funny, but it was funny, of how when something happens and you feel like, okay, I'm having a hard time explaining this, but you feel like, oh, what if, and then you're already planning the funeral kind of thing, because you can only envision the worst, right? And it's not funny to talk about planning a funeral, but then that just shows you of how far we can take things out of context. It's just like we leap to the next worst thing, right? And it's sometimes we have more faith that our worst fears will come true than what we do that God will come through. And so here's our challenge. If you can change the way you think, it will change the way you feel. And that takes us into the concept of thinking about what you think about. And there was an interesting reel on this a while back where they had done a study, and there's actually a name for this, to think about what you're thinking about. And they had done a study about how many people are actually aware of their thoughts and actually think about what they are thinking about. And it was super low. It was very, very low. And I thought that's interesting, because you would think people that are successful or like different personalities would be more aware of what they are thinking about. But apparently we have to be taught to think about what we're thinking about. And he confirms that, where he says thinking about our thoughts, thinking about your thoughts isn't natural, but it's necessary. If we're going to live the victorious life God has for us, we must think about what we're thinking about. Proverbs 4:23, be careful how you think. Your life is shaped by your thoughts. Two truths immediately jump from this passage. First, your thoughts are your choice. I don't think we always recognize this, right? We have sometimes gone with a situation and been so deep in our thoughts, trying to analyze, trying to work through it, that we have confirmed an outcome or confirmed a belief about what has happened, created a belief because we have thought that thought over and over. And like Colleen says, what we believe about ourselves. Most of those things that we believe about ourselves are just thoughts that we have thought so many times that it's created belief. It's really not a belief. It's really just a lie that we have told ourselves until we believe it. And that started with a choice to repeat that thought. And we have the power to undo that.
For myself, I sometimes think of, or I remind myself how I created these little pathways in my brain of negative thoughts. And if I can do that, then I can also create little pathways of positive thoughts. And it's just been I've just, been very aware of my thoughts lately too. And just reminding myself, if I can do that, then I can also do this.
There was an interesting question on a reel the other day, which said, and hopefully I'm not going to butcher this, what should you do more of? Should you have more positive thinking, or should you think less negative? And I sat on that for a while, and it was like almost a riddle. And then he explained the concept to be like, well, you should think less negative, because if you just add more positive thinking, you still have a dirty swimming pool and all you're doing is adding clean water. And I was like, that makes so much sense. It's very simple concept, but it's like, creating those new pathways. That's really good, Tira. Nobody can choose those for you. The devil can't make you dwell on anything. We get to choose that, right? So often we hear like, we've been feeling attacked or feeling like, he's having a heyday with you. We get to choose what we want to think. He cannot make you dwell on anything. The people around you can't make you think certain thoughts. Only you can control you. Other people's words or behaviors can try to plant a seed of negativity or doubt, but only you get to decide what thoughts take root in your mind. This is like your dad, Colleen. His dad shared a secret that his grandfather had shared with him. You can't stop the birds from flying over your head, but you can stop them from building a nest in your hair. You cannot control what happens to you, but you can control what happens in you. I often feel like putting visuals in your brain helps you to visualize when you're coming up against letting your thoughts just flow. So when he says, fix your thoughts, don't let your thoughts wander, don't allow just any thought to pass the gate of your mind. And so if you visualize that you have a gate in your mind, excuse me, and you're catching yourself going down this pathway of negative thinking, put that gate up. Give some thought to your thoughts. There are plenty of problems you could focus on, but Paul says to focus on your thoughts, what are good, pure, and lovely. When it comes to self-doubt, focusing on your insecurities or shortcomings will not help you move forward. And I think that's where we can feel like that treadmill just keeps on going, right? We're not moving forward. And it's because we're allowing those thoughts to still get past our gate. And so to take that into your power, you have to be aware, oh, this is me again, thinking this insecure or self-doubt thought, right? And it's like Sheila said before, when you get that feeling, all of a sudden you feel that feeling like in your chest or in your tummy, and you're like a little bit nauseous, and you're like, oh, what are they thinking about me? Or all of a sudden it just becomes about you. It's not about the other person anymore. To remember that feeling, to take that captive and to be like, this is me thinking that negative thought, right? Put that gate up. God wants to heal you and help you move past the pain, but ruminating on the negative thinking keeps the wound open. You have a choice. You get to decide which thoughts you meditate on and which ones you ignore. Only you get to decide. Your thoughts are your choice. I think taking power of that gives you, to me, that felt empowering, right? It's not like random people get to speak into my mind. The devil doesn't have control over my mind. Like there's so much empowering thoughts on that. I get to control what I think. I get to choose what to think on, and I get to choose to lay that aside and to not think on that.
I feel like I'm getting pretty good at doing that. It's like I'll find myself in a negative thought and I'll just be like, no, no, that's not who we are anymore. Switch it around and let's go. It still catches me a lot, but there's like lots of times I find myself catching myself more and more. So it's like it's kind of awesome, but it's work and it takes practice, and it's, you know, you can't just be like, I'm just gonna do this now. Like this has been years and years of practice, and it's becoming easier, and I don't sit in the cave as long, and I can find my way out a little quicker.
Holly, that's empowering. That's amazing. You can find your way out quicker. And I think that's a huge part of that, is having grace, that it's a process. It's creating a new habit, right? Our lives are always moving in the direction of our strongest thoughts. And when I thought of that, I was like, huh, am I actually thinking towards where I'm wanting to go? Right? It kind of makes you evaluate and think about like, oh, maybe there's thoughts that I need to change.
I definitely know that I need to change that. Like when you said, where do I want to go? Because I don't think all my life, I haven't, I don't set goals. I don't because I'm scared I'm going to fail. That's, yeah, that
And
is something I have to work at.
I think that's probably one of the biggest things that we learn in this business is to be okay with failure, to not allow yourself to be defeated just because you have failed. Winning doesn't come without failing. And that concept is also taught in society. Like if you think about our education system, only winning gets acknowledged. But all the, if you think about all the grade 1 X's on your paper that were wrong, they were just signs of showing you this is what you're still learning. And even as adults, we still struggle with that, right?
Yeah.
I've watched some other diamonds in Plexus, not just diamonds, but just women in general, go through some pretty heavy failure. And to take that and to turn it around and to use it to empower and build other women. And I always think about like the big part of that is to remove self and to not allow that negative piece speak life over yourself, to take root, but to use that experience to help others. That is powerful. What I like to call Godfidence, right? This is not a confidence in yourself or your abilities, but a confidence in who God is and what he can do. And we so often, like Sheila said before, think about we have to just power through. We just have to do it ourselves, but we don't stop and take a nap under the tree and refresh a bit so that we can be refilled again. This part is really very reflective to what we do in Plexus, because I feel like the more I know this, the more I see it in the world and just even in people around me. When we dwell on negative thoughts, I'll always mess up. Everything is stacked against me. I'll never get ahead. Scientists found that the brain releases chemicals in the body that attack our health and well-being. Research has found that when you focus on thoughts of anger or resentment and self-hatred over time, you produce a steady flow of toxic chemicals from the brain that attack your immune system. Legitimately, we make ourselves sick. We physically make ourselves sick, right? Studies have linked chronic diseases such as heart disease, diabetes, and even some forms of cancer to toxic emotions and negative thoughts. Your mind and body are critically connected. But the great news is if your thoughts are powerful enough to make you sick, they're also powerful enough to make you healthy. The same researchers that found the healthy thoughts produce healthy bodies, neuroscientists have discovered that repetitive thoughts form neural pathways, right, Tira? That's what we're doing. We're making those new pathways. They call this neuroplasticity. When our brains change our synaptic wiring, which changes our perspective on life, which changes our life, your thoughts are powerful. And so when we see people who we try to help with the products and they come back and they say, this isn't working. Nothing ever works for me. I tried it. It doesn't work for me. What are they affirming? They're affirming what they already had in their mind. They're not looking to say, okay, I'm giving my body something new. This is going to work. And I tell people this when they start. How you think about this is going to determine what your outcome is, because your body is listening to everything that you say about it. And so if you say, I can't lose weight anyhow, you're not going to lose weight. If you say nothing helps me anyhow, it's not going to help because you're already affirming it. And so I'm working with a lady right now who is a little bit more than my age, and she has a lot of these things. And she has struggled with a lot of these health issues for 30 plus years. And so I'm gently trying to show her, look, you're affirming what your body already knows. You have to change how you speak about this. And she laughed and she said, You think me saying something good about myself is going to change? And I said, yes, it will. I'm actually serious. Yes, it will. And so we get to empower people with that, not just with the products, but of how they actually think about themselves. It's so powerful. So he goes into 2020, where they were pastors of church, and how his wife was going through this, right? And how she realized her first thoughts of the day were setting the tone for the whole day. When we shift that simple concept about how you wake up and how you get out of bed in the morning, that you actually set the tone, is so incredibly powerful. This day is God's gift to me. It will be full of opportunity to add value to people, full of challenges that I'm fully equipped to take on and gifted for. We're already gifted for them. Full of disruptions that I'm graced to handle. Not like, oh, now this is happening, I won't get anything done. Full of God's goodness at every turn. My limitation is God's opportunity. His strength is perfect, so I don't have to be. How empowering is that, right? I like the way that he talks about declarations, not just doing affirmations. I feel like we have been taught to do affirmations, and you can speak things over and over. If you don't believe them, they're not going to be helpful to you at all. But to declare something and speak that over yourself, just like Holly said, stopping that thought. We're not going there again today. Sometimes you have to stop yourself and pause and say, okay, so if I'm not going there, what am I going to think? You get to replace that. And by declaring something, you're telling yourself what to do. Day by day, those declarations changed her thoughts, and the new thoughts gave her strength to move forward. Your thoughts are more powerful than you know, which is why you need to give some thought to your thoughts. Most people never give thought to their thoughts. They never evaluate what seeds they are planting in the recesses of their minds. So take some time to do inventory of your thought life. What are some of the recurring thoughts that you think about each day? How are negative thoughts shaping your perspective on life and your relationships? Maybe you need to write down some declarations and speak them out loud every day. Elijah did something with his thoughts that hurt him. He left them unattended. He allowed them to run free, and they took him out. He became overwhelmed with fear and doubt, and it drove him into a dark, lonely cave. What if you took every thought captive instead of being held captive by every thought? Doesn't that feel so much better, even just saying that? Every thought of worry, captive. Every thought of fear, captive. Every insecure thought, captive. As you do, your life will move in a different direction, one that begins to see the promise and future that God has for you. That took a bit to get through that chapter. It's a really, really good chapter. Ramona, I say overruled and hit my first fist into my hand or table and then do my power pose. Then quote scripture in my truth out loud, because it's physically empowering, right? It's very physically empowering. I'm always sitting with a highlighter because I feel like when you highlight something, it's like, okay, reminding your brain to take that in, right? So do the questions that he has at the end of the chapters, because I feel like they're very helpful for us to write out some of the things that we're working on. I feel like chapter 3 is a very full chapter, but it's also very personal, right? There's excellent ways to deal with anxiety. and it's going to be unique to everybody. I think that's the thing of where we see in the medical world of anxiety has been dealt with in such a blanket way, like everybody gets treated the same way. And anxiety is so much more than, just a physical symptom, right? So he talks about when he had his first panic attack. What I discovered that was that anxiety wasn't the problem. It wasn't sinful or wrong. Instead, anxiety was the warning flag and the indicator light telling me there was something I needed to deal with. There's a stigma that comes with saying, I deal with anxiety or I deal with depression. There's a stigma, especially in, I would say, Christians in itself, where so often you hear people, and I think there's like multiple versions of why our bodies struggle under anxiety. I think there's the physical health version, because when our body is depleted and we don't have proper gut health, which cannot feed our brain, this is a very, very physical, evident way that our bodies, our brains are going to deal with anxiety, because it's simply not being fed, it's starving. And then there's the spiritual version of anxiety, right? Where we're trying to work through something and it's so hard. And then there's the mental, just the mental load of it all. So he takes us through of anxiety undetected, and the World Health Organization, published a whole list of symptoms. Anxiety not only erodes our quality of life, but it fuels insecurity and kills our confidence. Research has repeatedly shown a correlation between anxiety and self-doubt. So what are we saying here? Are we saying that the thoughts that we're allowing, that we're not thinking about, that have created this self-doubt actually lead to anxiety? Isn't that what he's saying? Anxiety can skew one's perception of reality, leading to an exaggerated sense of inadequacy and distorted self-image. Do not tell me women do not struggle with this. Anxiety magnifies the problem, leading to feelings of incompetence and despair. There is a passage of scripture that gives us the antidote to anxiety. By definition, is a remedy to counteract the effects of the poison. Reversing the effects of the poison takes time, discipline, and sometimes help from medical professionals, but this antidote is available to each of us. The most highlighted verse in the Bible, which I found kind of interesting. Be anxious for nothing, but in everything by prayer and supplication, with thanksgiving, let your requests be made known to God, and the peace of God, which surpasses all understanding, will guard your hearts and your minds through Christ Jesus. Paul gives us the solution for anxiety, right? And we can go through the whole of how to deal with this, but I felt like it might be more helpful for us to share examples of where each one of us has gone through something like this and come out on the other end, because we have examples from small to big. We all have examples of how we have dealt with anxiety and how normal it is and how it affected what we believe about ourselves. So he gives us all the tools of how to deal with it, right? Don't deny it, deal with it. Don't shut down, speak up. This is so common we hide away, we pull within ourselves, we tuck it away thinking we're the only ones dealing with it. I think something for me, I dealt with a lot of anxiety when it came to like, and I'm going to talk business, not family or personal, but I think in building my Plexus business, I had a lot of anxiety in, how am I going to do this? Like, how is this ever going to happen? Working with closed hands, trying to hold on and trying to do everything that I was possibly capable of doing on my own to create the outcome. And the anxiety would just about suffocated, right? It was so heavy. It was so like overpowering, like you could not see past it. When you realize that you just have to open your hands, to not deny it, say, yeah, this is there, it's okay, I don't need to control it, to pray about it, be anxious for nothing, but in all things, prayer and thanksgiving, by supplication, that you can actually stand with open hands, your shoulders drop because the tension falls off, because it literally falls out of your brain. I think the word that I'm looking for is surrender, which was incredibly hard for me to do. Because that also means in my brain to surrender to the outcome. But the amazing thing that happens is the outcome is usually way better than if you try to control it all. Debbie, that is really good. I have something I have to do today that left me anxious. Last night I read this chapter and it made me leave the anxiety at Jesus's feet. This morning I woke up to rain, just felt like a hug from God that everything will be okay. You needed that nap.
My example is, I don't know if I want to take you back to this time because nobody wants to remember this time, but during COVID,
Mhm.
oh my word, I'm telling you, my daughter got married during that time, or our daughter. And oh, I can't tell you. And you know, it's interesting, like that verse, what it says, prayer and supplication and with thanksgiving, right?
Mhm.
So I really, really experienced that because I can't tell you, I'm gonna cry. I'm sorry. I can't tell you how many times I listened to this song. Um, oh, what was it called? By CeCe Willens or whatever.
Oh,
Believe for it. And I just cried before God, like, because I thought we weren't going to be able to make it, right? Because they weren't allowing us to fly. And oh my word, like it was, that was huge. And I don't know how many people, like, during that time, just, I never was afraid of getting sick. Not that at all, but I'm sure there were many people that were afraid of getting sick, right? But for me, I was so scared that I wouldn't be able to make it to Bolivia and be at my daughter's wedding. But God worked it all out. And I'm telling you, when I flew, it was like I was praying the whole time. I was praying the whole time. And then Larry came later, my husband came later, and oh, they refused him at the airport at first, but God made a way. He crossed the border and flew from the States. But yeah, that is a huge story in itself, like
yeah,
how God provided. I'm telling you. But that doesn't mean you're not going to walk through that
right.
difficult stuff. You're going to walk through it, but you just have to learn to literally hold on to God's hands. Like with your hands up like this. God, I can't. You have to do it. Because, yeah, that's Oh, there's so many times in my life that I've had to do that, but you'd think I would have learned by now.
I
But
don't think you ever learn that completely.
yeah,
I think there's life gives you these, but I think the key thing of what you said is you have to still walk through them.
yeah,
And if you think about life from young to being older, I think about how anxious I was the first time I went into premature labor. My sister had had a 1 pound 7 ounce baby that lived, and I knew very intimately what preemie life was like, and how, for us living remotely, and she was gone from her family for 4 months, and here I was, my husband was out in the Northwest Territories working 7 hours away, and I was in premature labor at 29 weeks, and I was like, ugh. The anxiety overtakes you.
yeah,
And then I remember one of the nurses telling me, you have to decide to relax because your baby is listening to what your body is doing. Again, that physical power that we hold over ourselves, right? And I think each time that you do work your way through situations like that, you become stronger in your belief about yourself. You become stronger in knowing, I've made it before, I can make it again. I remember when I started this business, and there was so many things that, personal growth just threw at me, and I was like, I cannot do that. And then our saying became, I can do anything hard for a day. If I just set my tone to one day, I can make it through today. I'm not going to worry about tomorrow, but I can make it through until today, tomorrow, just today. That's all I need, right?
I'm currently going through the book of David in the Bible, and I was just reminded again, I think it was yesterday, how he brought everything to God. Like all the big things and the little things. The big things like his enemies wanting to kill him, and the small things like what he was feeling. And David is known, even God said, a man after God's own heart. So if he can do that, if he can bring all those big things and the little things to God, then we can do that too. And these personal development books too has helped me a lot with just knowing where my thoughts are going to and what I think about myself, and how what other people think of me does not define who I am. And just, yeah, there's just been a lot of growing lately in many different areas.
That's so good. Very empowering. All right. Thank you all for sharing. Thank you for being here. Chapter 4, we're starting to talk about comparison. I'm looking forward to that. I've really enjoyed this book so far. Thanks for being here. Have a great day, guys.